Thank you. Representative Delozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, over this way. Make you go back and forth. I have a couple questions on two separate issues. So quickly, the first one deals with an issue with two committees that I've served on with Consumer Affairs and Labor and Industry. The one-call system that we have in the legislation that has been proposed back and forth. Just want to take this opportunity to try and ask a few quick questions about that particular proposal and your views on that. One to start is, do you support the transfer over to the PUC, and does the governor as well?
Yes, the governor supports the transfer of the PA1 call to the UC, and the department will continue to administer that system as the enforcement of PA1 calls aggressively as we can, as long as the department has PA1 call within our responsibility. I do know that there have been a couple of hearings on that in the last session, and I just want to urge the General Assembly to take up seriously the issues that we have raised during those hearings, because regardless of whatever agency enforces PA1 call, it is paramount that the enforcement agent have comprehensive data about the utility strikes that happen in Pennsylvania in order to be able to do its job. Under the current law, there's no requirement that facility owners, operators, excavators, the folks who might have a hit, have to report those hits to our agency. As a matter of fact, the biggest collector of whether those hits happen and what happens is PA1 call themselves. And despite repeated requests since I've gotten into the department, they are not willing to share the information about the hits with the department. And if they're not willing to share with the enforcement agent where the hits are happening, we can't properly enforce. So whatever you do with regard to legislation and whoever you put enforcement with, you have to make sure that the enforcing agency is required to receive the information about the hits so that they can make sure that they are keeping the public and the workers safe.
Okay, and what do you believe would be the impact on L&I if we switch that out and move it over to the PUC?
We will continue to enforce all the other labor laws that we enforce.
So there's minimal impact then necessarily with, how many employees do you have working with the enforcement and oversight of this?
Yeah, because the underground utility law is an incident-based issue, we use our inspectors that do a lot of our other labor law, labor compliance work in the field for that purpose.
And how much?
We have 69. Why is 69 sticking in my head? I'm looking for Sean. 32. Oh, we have 32. I was combining BOIS and labor law. We have 32 labor law compliance investigators, and we have other investigators in our Bureau of Occupational and Industrial Affairs that had started some cross-training between.
Okay, and how much of the dollars from the fees come to labor and industry to cover the cost of enforcement from PA1 call?
Well, the PA1 call actually was one of the few areas where when we got fees, we kept them in the department. Everything else went into the general fund, which is a discussion for another part of my budget if anybody wants to ask me that question. But it was covering the cost of what we were doing for
so your fees were covered. So the costs were covered. Okay. And switching real quick over before the time runs out is we had a hearing in the Labor Committee dealing with many issues, but the SWIFT fund and outstanding debt. One of the issues that was raised by folks from your agency, and that's something that raised a lot of flags as well as interest to fix that because there are many companies that might be bad actors that don't pay in, leave and may form a new business under another name, and because SWIFT is the last resort, they're required to provide that insurance. Would you support legislation that would require and give more teeth to the agency to be able to go after those bad actors in order to bring those dollars in and possibly be able to and give authority to deny insurance if they know and can validate that that is a bad actor?
Yeah, I mean, we would very much like to work with the General Assembly on any solution. I think it's always a balancing act that you have to play between driving businesses underground and making the problem worse versus trying to keep them operating their business correctly. So, we talked a few minutes ago about the UEGF fund, and we don't want to drive people out of getting workers' comp insurance, and then we drive those injured workers into the UEGF fund. But I think there are some things that we can try to accomplish together to make a better balance.
Okay, look forward to working with you on it. Thank you.